Straight
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. Dre, what is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we are on part 2 of our ongoing 3-part mini-series, Why MAGA is Great for the United States of America. You already got the background and the frame to this, so I don't have to give you too much of intro, but let me give you 3 things you need to know. Number 1, my text message number is down below in the description. Number 2, workonmygame.com. You want to get my emails that come out every single day straight to your inbox completely for free. I call it the Daily Game email. Just go to workonmygame.com. Those will be coming to your inbox starting tomorrow. And number 3, Work on Your Game University. People ask me, Dre, is there a way to work with you directly? Is there a way to get more game, more value from you, to work with you on a consistent basis, be able to talk to you, ask you questions, get your insights, get your strategies, and helping me systematize my business, especially those of you who are professionals and entrepreneurs? Answer is yes, and that happens at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Those links all down below in the description to this episode. So let's pick up where we left off, which is point number 4. We are on part 2 of our 3-part mini-series. The topic again, why MAGA is great for America. Point number 4, government deregulation. Government deregulation, what that basically means in simple terms is removing the bureaucratic red tape that tends to slow things down and cause inefficiencies in processes. And the United States government is the best example of a bureaucracy with a ton of red tape. There are other examples, but the government is the best one. Government deregulation makes it easier for small and large businesses to thrive. Why? Because it reduces bureaucratic hurdles. So any of you ever done anything with the government, you know one thing is going to be a ton of paperwork. A lot of paperwork, a lot of back and forth, a lot of paper shuffling that needs to be done in order to get things done through the government. And Donald Trump is trying to help reduce that. He has pushed very strongly to have less red tape in the United States government. We all know about, well, many of you know about DOGE, known as the Department of Government Efficiency, being ostensibly run by Mr. Elon Musk, who's an entrepreneur himself. And he's a guy who knows how to eliminate red tape. He does it. It comes natural to him. So if you recall, during Donald Trump's first campaign in 2015 and 2016, he used a phrase called draining the swamp. Now, he doesn't use that phrase as much anymore, and I think I know why. I'll tell you about that in a second. But when he said draining the swamp, this is what he meant. Reducing the bureaucratic red tape happening in the government. This is all part of the swamp. So less regulation, less red tape, fewer bureaucrats getting in the way of things, smaller and more limited government, and more freedom for American citizens to live, be, and do as we wish without government oversight or overreach. And again, I think most Americans would be happy with that. I think the only pushback people have to this is who's responsible for doing it. They don't like Donald Trump, so anything he's trying to do, they're pushing back against it, even if it's something that they would actually want. And that's also known as Trump derangement syndrome. And this is the way the founding fathers designed the government to be, by the way, in case any of you didn't know. The government was not designed to be a full-time job. It was not designed to be a job where you drew your full salary from just working in the government. That was not the way it was supposed to be. It has become that. And this is how you get career politicians who may need to weigh a decision on 2 sides. 1, which one will help me maintain my career? And number 2, which one helps the constituents who actually voted for me and put me in place? And they have to choose between the 2. And I don't blame them for having to choose between the 2. The system put them in a position where they have to choose between the 2. And this is where the government has messed up. This is where the government has screwed up royally in the way it has allowed itself to be bloated into what it is today. This is the reason why many American citizens do not trust the government or people who work in the government, for that very reason, that we inherently understand this, even if you could not articulately explain it. That when you work in the government these days, because it is a career, and because a lot of people working in the government have had no other professional career besides being in the government, nothing where they can make the same amount of money that they make in the government, these people sometimes have to decide, do I do the thing that will best serve the people who voted for me, or should I do the thing that will best serve me keeping my career here in the government? And sometimes they do have to make that choice. And us, again, subconsciously understanding that, even if you couldn't articulate it, is the reason why we don't trust them, because we have a feeling, even if you, again, could not explain this, you have a feeling sometimes that politicians are prioritizing themselves more than they're prioritizing the people. Any of you ever felt like that about a politician? Of course you have. And there's a reason why, because they actually have to do that. That really happens. That's not some random sensation that you just got out of nowhere. It's real. So this is the way, again, the founding fathers designed the government to be limited and people to be giving a service when they work for the government, not doing it as a job. It's gotten completely out of whack, especially over the last 50 years. So what Donald Trump is trying to do is bring that back. He's not going to do it in 4 years, but he's trying to at least set it in the right direction. The reason why a lot of people push back against it is not necessarily because they don't like the ideas, but because Donald Trump's the one doing it. Again, this is a childish and immature way of looking at things, but we can't say that it's not real. Again, I did a whole series on this called, I explained why people have Trump derangement syndrome. Let me find that episode. Trump derangement syndrome was episode number 3156, 3157, and 3158. Just a few weeks ago, if you didn't catch that. So another thing is, if you do not work in and are not connected to the United States government in any direct way, how in your right mind would you ever want the government to have more overreach and more control over the way that you live? How do you justify that idea? Why would you want that? And this is something that when people ask me about Trump and Kamala Harris from the 2024 election, I say, if I had to make a decision just based on one issue, it is this one right here. Is that, well, actually there are several one issues that I can make decisions on. And one of them is this one right here, which is Kamala Harris being a career politician who has no other professional skill other than being in the government and working for the government. Even as a prosecutor, she's working for the government. She wanted to implement more things that would put the government's hands in more of our lives. I would never want that. I don't want any politician. I'm not going to support any politician who's pushing, let's do more things that gives the government more overreach and more say over how you live. I don't want it, even if it's something that allegedly is supposed to be helping me. So Kamala Harris came out with a lot of initiatives like, we're going to give this to black people and do this for black men. And she was trying to get the black vote with that nonsense. The problem with all of it was that all of it required the government to have more hands and more of their tentacles in the lives of everyday people. Whereas Donald Trump is talking about Department of Government Efficiency. We're going to start eliminating shit. And if I had to pick between the two, even if I'm passing on the handouts that Kamala Harris is offering, I'd rather pass on the handouts to keep the government out of my business. Moving on. Point number 5. Today's topic, once again, is why MAGA is great for America. Number 5, focus on law and order. Now, this is something I think I was talking about this in a live stream that I did this morning. And by the way, I do live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern on every streaming platform. And somehow, some way, and I don't know why, but the political left decided to position themselves as the party of criminal justice reform and helping out criminals and making sure that criminals were being treated properly and fairly, or whatever language they try to use around it. I have no idea why they would position themselves this way, because it was an easy layup for the political right to say, okay, well, we're the party of law and order. We're the party of making sure victims are taken care of and making sure the criminals are off the street and making sure that we're enforcing our laws, and we're the party of supporting police. And this was a really dumb move by the Democratic Party, because most Americans, even if they're doing it quietly and in the comfort of their own homes, do not support criminals. They do not support justice for criminals in that sense. They support, hey, let's make sure the criminals are not here, that they don't come into our neighborhoods, and if they're committing crimes, they need to be taken care of. Most people go along with that. Most people are not criminals. So why the Democratic Party would even put themselves in a position to be, oh, we're supporting criminals and we want to help out the people who are doing crime because they need to be treated fairly too. This was a stupid move. And it's not to say that there are some criminals who are being treated unfairly by the system and they deserve to be treated humanely. Is that true? Yes, but it's not enough of them, nor is there enough support for it, for why the political left will want to position themselves as the people who want to plant their flag there. That was a really, really bad strategic move, and now they're stuck there. So Donald Trump pushes law and order. And the people, again, who don't like Donald Trump, they're experiencing the TDS. They pretend, they feign that this law and order thing is some tragedy. No, it's not. Again, people instinctively push back on this just because of Donald Trump. But no person, most of you who are listening to this are not a fan of let's do things to help out criminals. You're a fan of let's make sure there are no criminals. You don't want to have to deal with criminals because you're not a criminal. And again, even if you don't say it all out. All right, even as a black man living in America, because sometimes I'll say something along these lines on social media, and somebody, usually a nameless, faceless person, a troll account, will say, well, you're a black person. Why are you saying stuff like that? I even get these comments sometimes when I'm doing live streams. And these are people who assume that just because you're black, there are certain opinions that you're supposed to have. I completely reject that. But there are a lot of black people who go along with it. So I understand why this pushback exists. Because there's a lot of black people who think this way. It's foolish. No, I'm black, so that means I'm supposed to believe this, this, and this, and go along with this. Then you get white people telling black people this, and then you got black people telling black people this. I reject all of this nonsense, and I'm explaining to you why. Because as a black man living in America and saying I'm completely on board with the concept of law and order, there's a bunch of black people who would have an issue with me saying that, and their pushback would be, why would you as a black person say something like that? That would be that's their reasoning, if you even want to call that reason. I'm being generous by calling that reason. That's not reason. So if someone says to me, and there are white people who say this too, maybe some of them listening to me right now, they say, Dre, you're a black man in America. Why would you be okay with the concept of law and order? I'll tell you, motherfucker, because I'm not a criminal. That's why I'm okay with the concept of law and order. I like going out and I'm walking with my son and I see some police. I like seeing police. You know why? Because if there's police around, I know there ain't gonna be no criminals around doing anything stupid, and therefore I don't have to deal with them. You see, something you should understand about me, and some of you this applies to you as well. I can deal with somebody who is a criminal who's trying to do something dumb. I'm capable of dealing with those people. A lot of you are not capable of dealing with them. You should be happy with police presence and law and order, because that means you are more safe out there in the streets from people who don't care about the law and they don't care about following it. I care about the law and I care about following it. I don't want to deal with somebody who's not following the law, but I am capable of dealing with someone who's not following the law. You get what I'm saying? And if you're not, why the hell would you not be okay with law and order? What are you going to do when one of the criminals comes across you? What are you going to do? If you're not capable of doing anything to them, what you going to do? Be a victim? Why would you be okay with that? So as a black person living in America, ostensibly what people are trying to say without saying it directly is that black people are supposed to be against the cops because the cops allegedly hate black people and they're out there trying to kill black people. Excuse me. This is a nonsense argument because, first of all, you look up the stats on young black men between the ages of 18 and 35 losing their lives. 98% of the time they're losing their lives. You know who's doing the killing? Not a cop, not a white person, not white supremacy, not the government. It's a fellow black man. That's a statistical fact. So this whole argument that black people are supposed to be against the cops because the cops are somehow out killing black people. No, cops are not killing black people. Black people are killing black people. That's a statistical fact. So next time you hear some black person or anybody trying to make this false claim that it's the cops that are killing black men, that's complete bullshit. Push back on their nonsense and do not allow that bullshit to stand, because it's not true. So again, being that I'm not a criminal, I want law and order. Now, anybody who's not a criminal should be in favor of law and order. Because again, why would you be in favor of criminals? Because what happens when the criminals come to your front door? If you ain't ready to deal with them, what you gonna do? So the presence of police does not make me nervous. When I see a cop, I don't get nervous. What I'm getting nervous for? I ain't doing no crime, so I ain't worried about what the cop is thinking or is gonna do. And my energy does not attract police attention. So the cop doesn't do anything. When I see a cop, they say, hey, how you doing? I say, how you doing? I keep walking. That's what happens. That's what happens. It makes me feel safer when I see a cop, because I know there's less chance of people behaving reckless when they see cops. I don't feel nervous, anxious, or fear if I get approached or pulled over by a cop, because I know I ain't breaking any laws. I can't even remember the last time I got pulled over driving. It's been over a decade, maybe 15 years. Anyway, if you're a law-abiding citizen and you're a fan of discipline and structure, law and order are forms of discipline and structure that keeps everybody in check. What problem do you have with this? I'm not saying that the law or police or the justice system, definitely justice, I'm not saying that they always do a good job. Sometimes they screw up. Absolutely. This is the reason why I emphasize over and over again, if you do not have financial resources, and or if you have financial resources and you would like to keep your resources, do not end up in the justice system, because it's just going to cost you money, because your freedom is all about how much you can afford to be free, not whether you're actually innocent or guilty. That's the way the legal system works in America. You can try to reform it if you want, but I suggest you stay out of it while you're trying to reform it. Okay, so the justice system and the legal system sometimes does screw up. Let me be clear on that. Okay, I don't even think the legal system in America is as effective or efficient as it should be, and there are some major flaws in it. I just gave you one of them. What I'm saying is law and order is better than the alternative of no law and no order. Because again, if you have no law and no order, then the world will be run by savages. And if you are listening to this and you are not a savage, you don't want to live in a world where there's no law and order, because you would become a victim. Do you understand? Point number 6. Today's topic, once again, is why MAGA is great for America. Number 6, standing up to China. Now, this has been a big one for Donald Trump his entire political existence. He's made a lot of noise by standing up to China. Any of you who buys things on Amazon, for example, if you were to look, you don't even have to look that deep, but if you want to look deep into where your products are actually coming from, not necessarily where they are shipped from, but where they're coming from, who's making these products, A lot of the assembly gets done in China. A lot of your products that you buy are made in China and sold by Chinese companies. One reason why this happens is because the labor costs are a lot cheaper over there in China. So many American companies outsource their manufacturing and labor to China, and then they bring it back over to America and sell it to us. One of the reasons that is because the labor laws in China are not nearly as strict as the labor laws here in America. And you can have child slave labor over in China making Nike shoes for 2 cents a day. I'm being hyperbolic here, but I'm not that far off. You can't do that to Americans. You wouldn't get away with that in America. You can get away with it in China. And again, the labor costs are so cheap over there that American companies understand that they can save money by doing so. One of the problems that many entrepreneurs, on the other hand, have with China is that companies in China quickly and easily create knockoff products of American products, and then they undercut American businesses on price to the point that they basically steal your business out from under you. This happens a lot. I can even tell you as a person who, I don't even make physical products other than my books, and I don't even count those. But as far as physical products, like little widgets and gadgets that people sell, China undercuts all the time on these things. And even as a person who had a bunch of digital content on the internet back in the day when I was playing basketball, someone went on my YouTube channel. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. Downloaded every video I had on YouTube. This is all my basketball stuff. I got like 8,000 basketball videos on YouTube to this day. They downloaded all those videos somehow, some way off YouTube, then uploaded them to the Chinese version of YouTube, which is not called YouTube and is all in Mandarin. And somehow, some way, I don't remember how I did it, but I think somebody reached out to me. It's probably about 2010. He was a Chinese guy and he was a fan of my work. And he said, hey, he was talking to me about, we were negotiating how I could possibly get control of all my video content that was on the Chinese YouTube, because he showed it to me. And then when I got on the Chinese YouTube, because I never would have found the site because I don't know how to type in Mandarin. But once I got on the site, I typed in my name, Dre Baldwin, and my videos were popping up all over this site. And the views on those videos on the China YouTube were more than the views on my videos in the American YouTube. And I'm talking by the tens and the thousands more people watching my stuff. So I got a lot of fans in China. The problem is a lot of them can't reach out to me because many of them do not speak English, and because all the social media we have here in America does not exist in China. They have parallels, but it's not the exact app. So there's no Instagram, there's no Facebook, there's no Google over there in China. The point being, I'm saying all that to say this: China knocked off my digital stuff. Like, they don't just knock off physical stuff, they knock off digital stuff. And if you have a physical product and you sell it on Amazon, you already know. I guarantee anybody listening to this who has physical products for sale on Amazon, you've been knocked off on Amazon, whether you know about it or not. You probably already know about it. This is what happens with China. And I'm not saying this applies to all Chinese people. I'm saying this is what happens with China, period. And Donald Trump understands this. And any little small, again, items, electronics, tchotchkes that you can buy on Amazon, there are Chinese companies out there looking to make cheap knockoffs, and they'll just lower their price to beat you on price, and then they'll just cut you out of your own business. This is but one conflict America has with China. I'm just using that as an example. But this one matters to me as an entrepreneur and as a salesperson. On top of this, the way that China operates their government is very different than the United States of America. All right, China does not offer free speech. You see, just in this series alone, I'm doing a series on why MAGA is great for America and why MAGA is terrible for America, while MAGA is running the current administration. In China, if I was to do this, make a series saying why the current administration is great, they'd be all right with that. But if I made a counterpoint why the current administration is terrible, there'd be a knock on my door. Like, no, you can't do that. Take that one down, or we're gonna do something to you. And you don't have due process here in China the way you got due process in America. You get arrested in America, you got due process. You got a right to a lawyer. You can demand things. You got criminal justice. All right, over there, ain't no criminal justice. Ain't no criminal justice over there. They decide this is where you're going. That's where you're going. That's it. You don't get to call a lawyer unless they let you call a lawyer. You understand? You don't have free speech over there. You can't speak out against the government freely, and at least not to live to talk about it. And the government can basically supervise and overreach into any aspect of your life that they so choose. That's how it is over there. Now, why anybody in the United States or want our country to become more like them is beyond my reasonable understanding. But I understand some Americans want this. You Americans, when you talk about things like, well, we need to have more rules and regulations on independent platforms and what they say, and free speech doesn't mean they can just say anything. We got to have hate speech laws and harmful speech laws, and we got to be able to fact check these people on when they're spreading misinformation. That's the stepping stone of the nonsense. That's the stepping stone to you not having free speech. You hear what's happening in Germany right now? In Germany, they're sending police to people's houses for posting quote unquote racist things on the internet. That's really happening right now. I'm recording this in early 2025. That's what's happening in Germany right now. In other countries, you don't have the freedom to talk the way you want to talk and even think the way that you want to think, the way you have here in the United States of America. I'm just using China as an example here, but other countries, this happens. So you have to be on board with whatever the government decides to do, especially if you're going to speak out loud and in public. And if you don't, there will be consequences that you have no recourse for. This leads to high levels of, again, everybody has to be on board with whatever China decides to do. So it leads to high levels of discipline and consistent structure, which is why China seems to all be on the same page with the people. But the trade-off of that is that people don't have the freedom to think how they want to think and do what they want to do. So the question is, which one do you want? I would rather go with America, where there are people who will be on the far opposite end of where I am on certain subjects. I'll accept that trade-off for the freedom of us all getting to think how we want to think. Even though our current system here is less than ideal, there's no such thing as a perfect system. As you all know, there are only trade-offs. There are no perfect scenarios. I will take the trade-off of the way America is rather than us trying to become China. I hear a lot of left side political people talking like they want to be more like China, not actually saying it explicitly most of the time. But when you hear people talk about misinformation, hate speech, harmful speech, fact checking, these are all going in the direction of social credit systems and the government regulating what you can and can't say and penalizing you for saying the wrong thing or for a wrong think. I'm completely not with this at all, because these are stepping stones to more ridiculousness that I guarantee you don't want as an American. I'd rather have multiple entities who could take power in the United States of America as it is currently set up than there only being one entity that is reigning completely unchallenged with absolute power, because we all know that absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's a guarantee. It happens all the time. We don't want that. And Donald Trump standing up to China, he's talking about the trade deals and the tariffs and how much it's costing us to import over there versus how much it's costing them to import over here. And he wants to make the deal a little bit more fair, and China is coming up in power. So this is going to be a battle. The fact that he's even trying to make the battle and take on the battle is the part that I am applauding here in this part of my series. All that said, let's recap today's class, which is part 2 of our ongoing mini-series, why MAGA is great for America. Number 4, government deregulation, smaller government, less overreach, less oversight by the government. I'm always on board with that. For whatever reason, the left side politically has decided they want to be on the other side of this argument. I don't understand why they would take that position and why anybody would be okay with it. Number 5, focus on law and order. Again, why did the political left decide that they want to be the ones to support criminals? That it made it an easy move for the political right to say, okay, we're going to support law and order and not support criminals. Again, easy decision. Number 6, standing up to China. So not just the Chinese regime and the Chinese way of thinking, the way China has complete control over their citizens and how they talk, broadcast, and think, but also with the trade deals and the tariffs and the money and all of those things, because this is a battle that is brewing between the United States and China, and it's going to come to a head very soon. And it might happen during the Trump administration. We'll see. All that said, folks, tomorrow we'll get into part 3, the finale of this 3-part mini-series, why MAGA is great for America. Between now and then, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, have me as your direct coach, get into all of our training programs around mindset, strategy, systems, accountability, selling yourself, marketing yourself, branding yourself, content creation, and have me as your personal coach throughout the entire process. It's all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all